Namaste. Acharya, before we even jump into the connection of Vedanta with, animal rights or veganism, before that, I wanted to understand is that personally, what is the connection between Vedanta and India, Bharat?
Well, you see, Vedant is the culmination of the philosophy of the Vedas. Hmm? So, the Vedas are encyclopedic in nature. They talk about a lot of things. Hmm? Their topmost philosophical content is known as Vedant. Hmm? So, the Vedas originated in India. So, Vedanta is a very much homegrown philosophy of the soil. That's the relationship between Vedant and territorial India. And if we talk of India, the living conscious entity, then Vedanta is the root from which all the philosophical systems in some way or the other take their nutrition. So we have had so many streams of thought in India. We have had religions, sects, and their branches, and so much else. But the undeniable fact is that all of that finds its inspiration in Vedanta. In fact, it would not be an exaggeration to say that there can be no spirituality without Vedanta. Vedanta talks of and addresses such a simple and fundamental issue that you cannot avoid it if you want to live in truth, if you are someone who wants to understand life. So that's
Right.
Vedant for beginners.
Superb. Acharya, yeah, that's what I was asking. That is beautiful. That's almost like Sanatan Dharma, right? The eternal principles of life, where that is the foundation. Uh, and how old is this belief system in India? Are there any traces? Are there like can we trace it?
First of all, it is not a belief system.
Okay.
Religions are belief systems. Vedant is extremely exploratory in nature. It does not really ask you to believe in anything. It carries no dogmas. It carries no fables, no stories. You really don't need to posit anything, assume anything, or take anything for granted. That's the fundamental beauty of Vedanta.
It's experiential in nature.
Not even experiential, because even experience depends on the experiencer. Therefore, all experience is in some way subjective, and therefore flawed and open to questioning. What you experience might be very different from someone else does, or what I do, right? The three of us might have the same object in front of us, yet our experience with respect to the object might be entirely different. So therefore experience too cannot be taken as the truth. This is the level of rigor at which Vedanta operates. It goes right to the experiencer, to the entity that says I. I live, I feel, I sense, I say, I think, and questions it. Who is that entity? From where does it come? How much trustworthiness does it have? That's Vedanta.
Beautiful. Yes, there is a saying, "Aham Brahmasmi." So I am that I am. And does that also mean that it is us who reincarnate again and again, and that is why in different forms? Uh,
Yeah. Before we move ahead, I just forgot to answer the second part of your question. How old is Vedanta? You see, if I talk of the Upanishads specifically, which are the cornerstone of Vedanta. Vedanta consists of Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutra, and out of these three, the Upanishads are the fundamental. Then the oldest Upanishads, you could say, were written, composed around, around 4,000 years back, and from that time onwards, it has been a continuous stream, right? So there are Upanishads then that were composed before the Buddha. Then there are Upanishads that were composed in the Buddhist age. Then there are Upanishads that have been composed in the Christ era. And the most recent of the Upanishads are no more than 1,000 years old. So that's the chronology. It's not one particular book, the Upanishads. These are parts. These are excerpts from the bodies of the Vedas. Though some Upanishads have an independent existence also, but their genesis is spread over a vast stretch of time. Yeah, please.
Very interesting. So, what is the relationship between these Upanishads, Vedanta itself, with veganism or with just animism?
Yes. The relationship is extremely deep, very organic, and these two things, spiritual understanding and veganism, are actually inseparable. You see, when the Upanishads, or when Vedanta asks the question, who am I? Then after removing all the fluff and all the falseness, one comes to see that one is the consciousness that is asking this question. One is the experiencing entity. And if you have heard Acharya Shankar's famous Nirvana Shatkam, then there he continuously negates what one is not. I am not air, I am not water, I am not the body, I am not the past, I am not the future, I am not this, I am not that. So who am I then? I am consciousness, and I am consciousness that must be purified to the maximum extent possible. I am asking this question, who am I? Because the consciousness that I am suffers. It suffers because it is impure, it is impressionable, it is contaminated. So consciousness has to be respected, it has to be kept pure. If consciousness has to be respected, then consciousness in all forms has to be respected. You see, my suffering as an individual is because my consciousness has not received the kind of attention and respect from me that it deserved, right? If I really want to be free from suffering, then I have to respect consciousness. And if I have to respect consciousness, then how can I deny that the consciousness of the animal in front of me is not very different from my own? That the animal suffers in much the same way as I do.
There also has to be then a level at which a person starts identifying with consciousness itself. That's like the first step, because a lot of people cannot go beyond the physical, and understandably so, I think. It's really fair.
Yes. You see, so that's the trouble with living in the physical. The more you live in the physical, the more you destroy the physical. You see, when we say somebody is is very body identified. It appears that that person would be taking care of the body a lot, or would be taking care of the material aspects of the life a lot. Well, that's not really the case. When you are too attached to the body, when you're too identified to material stuff, you find that you destroy even the material stuff. For example, you look at the environmental crisis today, you look at the climate crisis, all that is destruction on a material dimension. Because man loves material, and therefore he is creating havoc in the dimension of the material, the earthly dimension. The trees, the rivers, the mountains, everything that is material is being destroyed. So even to let material stay in a healthy shape, one has to have a certain detachment from material. And that detachment from material can only come when you first of all identify yourself not as material primarily, having a material dimension, all right, but not material at the core, but consciousness at the core. And when you are consciousness at the core, you cannot avoid admitting that the glint in the eye of the chicken or the goat is not very different from the light in your own eye. How can you then proceed to slaughter the little thing? Very difficult.
I mean, it's also like having non-ownership, right? So I don't own this material, I don't own this body, I don't own that life form. I just identifying consciousness as it is, or what people sometimes call the creator. If one has any link to that, and whatever name that they call it, is when they start getting more sensitized to all beings, all living forms around. And I think animals are just one part of it. Is that what you meant?
You see, there is me and there is the material world, and there is a relationship between the two. When I do not know who I am, then the relationship between me and the material world consists of animals, inanimate things, persons, consumable goods, everything. Then the relationship between me and the world gets totally distorted. And obviously, I suffer and I make the world suffer, right? So a person who is cruel towards animals is actually quite likely to be inconsiderate and insensitive towards his or her loved ones as well. Because
But they might not even know it, right?
they might not even know it, but then it's like the virus. You may not know that you have the virus, but the effects will be there for you to experience and for everyone else to see, and the suffering might not be just personal to you. If you have the virus, then you cause suffering all around.
And according to the Vedic philosophy, isn't that we are insensitive to our own selves? Because, like you said earlier on, it all starts with knowing yourself. So if you respect yourself, you by default respect another, by default respect.
Well said. In fact, I have been emphasizing on this since a long time, that if you are being considerate towards animals, then it is not even a purely selfless thing. For your own good, please be sensitive to other conscious beings, other sentient beings. Because if you are not good to them, what it means is that you are not good to life itself, and you too are life. If you do not know how to respect the physical integrity, the very existence of an animal, you really do not know how to have even self-respect.